Only in Kentucky could one small county be nicknamed Bloody for violent feuds, fill its entire World War I draft with volunteers, and inspire ghost stories from a devastating flood. Hi, I'm Michael. I want to teach you a little bit more about Kentucky. One county at a time. All 120 of them. And today we're talking about Breathitt County. Breathitt County was formed in February of 1839 in eastern Kentucky. It's named after John Brethitt, who served as governor of Kentucky from 1832 until his death in 1834. So the county is named after a governor who never got to actually see it. The county seat started out as Breathitt Town. In 1839, local landowner Simon Cockrell Sr. donated 10 acres of land for the new county's courthouse and town site. A few years later, in 1845, they renamed Breathitt Town to Jackson to honor President Andrew Jackson, who had died that year. Jackson, Kentucky was officially incorporated in 1845, and it's been the heart of Breathitt County ever since. In the early days, Breathitt County was isolated in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, so travel was tough, mostly by river or rough trails originally. The community remained small and rural for decades. During the Civil War, many mountain families were divided, but Breathitt County saw some action. In April 1864, a Union unit from the 14th Kentucky Infantry attacked a Confederate camp at a place called Quicksand in Breathitt County. A few Confederates were killed or captured in that skirmish, and later that spring, Confederate raider General John Hunt Morgan passed through Breathitt on his last raid into Kentucky. After the Civil War, Breathitt earned an infamous reputation as Bloody Breathitt. From the 1870s through about 1920, the county was plagued by violent feuds, ambushes, and political killings. It seemed every election or family dispute could turn deadly. The courthouse that stood in Jackson during that time was a witness to countless shootouts. In just an 11-month span from 1901 to 1902, 40 men were killed in Breathitt County. And by the time the feuds ran their course, perhaps 100 county officials had been assassinated in those years. That nonstop cycle of violence is why the newspaper dubbed it Bloody Breathitt. Of course, these feuds made national news. In 1903, one of the most notorious events occurred on the Jackson courthouse steps. A prominent local attorney and U.S. Commissioner James B. Markham was shot dead as part of a bitter feud. The assassination of Markham was a tipping point. Kentucky's governor had to send state troopers to Jackson to restore order. Breathitt County's lawlessness was front-page news across the entire country. Yet, even while the feuds raged, the county was trying to move forward. In 1891, the railroad arrived in Jackson. The Kentucky Union Railroad laid tracks into the mountains and made Jackson a terminus. So suddenly, Breathitt County didn't seem so isolated. Jackson became a bustling little mountain town, a major shipping point for the upper Kentucky River Valley. New businesses sprang up. There were large dry goods stores, a lumber company, a brickyard, all thriving thanks to the new railroad. People could ship timber and goods out and bring in supplies by train. The late 1800s brought a burst of growth and connection to the outside world. Now, timber was king in those early 1900s. Outside investors bought up Breathitt County land and started logging on a massive scale. By 1908, the Mowbray Robinson Lumber Company had acquired nearly 15,000 acres in Breathitt County, and also neighboring counties as well. They even built a narrow-gauge railroad to haul logs from the deep hollows. One line ran from the forest around Quicksand to a sawmill in West Irving. By about 1922, most of the virgin forest was cut over. But rather than abandon the land, lumber baron E.O. Robinson did something forward-thinking. He donated the vast tract of land to the University of Kentucky in 1923. So UK established Robinson Forest on that land, an experimental research forest to replant trees, teach better farming, and help the local people out. That reforestation project means thousands of acres in Breathitt County are forested again today. Robinson Forest, now about 10,000 acres of contiguous woodland, is one of the largest educational forests in the eastern U.S., used primarily for research and wildlife management. Of course, coal mining also found its way into Breathitt County in the 20th century. Early coal mines opened around the 1900s once the railroad made transporting coal possible. So for generations, coal mining provided paychecks for local families, often alongside farming and logging. But like elsewhere in Appalachia, the coal industry eventually declined. Mines shut down or became mechanized, and jobs dwindled by the late 20th century. Many young people left to find work in cities. In fact, Breathitt County's population, which at one point peaked at about 24,000 in 1940, has since fallen to roughly 13,000 today in 2025. The economic shifts from timber to coal and then the loss of those industries dramatically reduced the population over time, as you can imagine. One thing Breathitt Countyans have always had, though, is pride and patriotism. During World War I, the county attained national prominence for a very positive reason. Breathitt County was the only county in the entire United States that met its World War I military quota entirely with volunteers. Not a single man had to be drafted. So that is over 400 men from Breathitt volunteering for service, more than filling the requirement. It's a remarkable footnote to American history that Bloody Breathitt sets its sons to war so willingly. The 20th century also brought hardship in other forms, though. Breathitt County is in the Appalachian foothills with numerous creeks, and flooding has been a recurring threat. The worst disaster struck in the summer of 1939. In July of that year, 9 inches of rain fell in northern Breathitt County in just a few hours, which resulted in a wall of water up to 20 feet high roaring down Frozen Creek without warning. The flash flood wiped out everything in its path. In the communities of Frozen Creek, the Kentucky Mountain Bible Institute, a small college, was completely destroyed by the torrent. In all, 52 people in Breathitt County lost their lives in that 1939 flood, and it was one of the worst flash floods in Kentucky history at the time. Governor A.B. Happy Chandler called it likely the worst calamity of its kind to ever hit Kentucky. The Frozen Creek flood of 1939 left a deep scar on that community. Of course, flooding didn't stop after 1939. The North Fork of the Kentucky River and its tributaries regularly overflow. Major floods hit Breathitt County all the time, and it happened again in 1977 and then again in 1984, damaging homes and town center. But in an effort to protect Jackson from frequent flooding, the river channel was altered in the early 1960s. Engineers cut a new route from the Kentucky River near Jackson, straightening a looping bend. And so the old river bend was left as a lake. It became Panbowl Lake. Between the town and the river, it serves as a sort of buffer for minor floods. Of course, even so, nature can overwhelm any precautions and planning. So as recently as July 2022, catastrophic flooding struck Breathitt County again and surrounding areas. After torrential rains, rivers rose to record levels, and tragically 11 Breathitt County residents died in the 2022 floods. The community is still rebuilding from that disaster. They've erected a memorial on Main Street in Jackson to honor those lives lost. Despite all the tough history, though, Breathitt County has plenty of bright spots. The city of Jackson today is a small town with a lot of pride. Scattered around Breathitt County are other little communities, of course, each with their own stories. Quicksand, for example, isn't just a tricky little creek name. It was once a Union Army campsite during the Civil War and later a hub for a big sawmill operation. The community of Morse Fork had a noteworthy pair of residents as well, a missionary couple affectionately known as Uncle Sam and Aunt Nola. Reverend Samuel Vandermeer came from New Jersey to Breathitt in the 1920s and married Nurse Nola Pease there. Together, they devoted many, many years of service to the people of Morris Fork as church leaders and community builders. Breathitt County has some famous connections too. In recent years, it's gained recognition in music and film. Sturgill Simpson, one of my favorite artists, was born in Jackson and spent much of his childhood there. Another native son is Jeffrey Reddick, a Hollywood screenwriter best known for creating the Final Destination horror movie franchise. He was born in Jackson as well. And if you're a fan of country music, you might know the duo Halfway to Hazard. One member, Chad Works, is from Breathitt County. In fact, for several years, Halfway to Hazard hosted an annual charity concert and an ATV trail ride in the tiny community of Crockettsville in Breathitt County, drawing big names like even Tim McGraw to that remote corner of the state. Every Labor Day weekend, Jackson hosts the Breathitt County Honey Festival. It's an annual celebration of the county's beekeeping heritage and mountain culture. The festival features a parade, vendors, live music, a 5K honey run, and of course lots of good food, including allegedly famous corn dogs. I'd like to learn more about those. Nature lovers come to Breathitt for fishing and kayaking on the rivers and lakes, and even to see elk. And yes, I said elk. In recent years, elk have been reintroduced into the region. At a place called South Fork, or some people call it South Fork Elk View, in southern Breathitt County, there's an elk viewing area where visitors can sometimes spot a herd of elk grazing on the hillsides, as well as free-roaming horses that live in the mountains. It's a pretty amazing sight in Kentucky, of course, and between the outdoor adventures and the rich history, there's a lot to take in that part of the state. And we can't forget about the ghost stories. Local legend says parts of Breathitt County are haunted by its turbulent past. In the Frozen Creek area where that 1939 flood wreaked havoc, people still tell some spooky tales. They say on certain nights you can see mysterious glowing orbs floating along Frozen Creek and hear the phantom cries of a woman calling out for her lost child. Some folks also say that the ruins of a roadhouse called Frozen Inn, at the time it was a hangout for bootleggers back in the day, I guess, that area is prowled by ghostly figures late at night. So that's what I got for Breathitt County. What'd I get wrong this time? By the way, I want to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the information that I got about Breathitt County came from Bookie on the Trail at bookhiker.com. If you want to know anything about Eastern Kentucky history, that is a great resource. Shout out to Bookie.